The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the abduction of Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy. Who would take an 84-year-old widow from her home in the middle of the night? And why would they do it? Here's the story. When 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie didn't show up for church on Sunday morning, her family's concern turned into a full-blown criminal investigation. The mother of Today's Show anchor Savannah Guthrie was last seen around 9:45 p.m. Saturday at her home in the Catalina foothills north of Tucson, Arizona, and was later reported missing after relatives found no trace of her inside. Investigators quickly declared her residence a crime scene, saying evidence indicated she did not leave voluntarily and was likely taken against her will, possibly from her bed in the middle of the night. Forensic teams found blood matching Nancy's DNA on her front porch. Security cameras and her pacemaker app were disabled around the time that she vanished, and at least one ransom note with specific details has been examined by police. The FBI has joined the search and is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to her safe return or an arrest. But as of now, no suspects or persons of interest have been publicly identified. Savannah and her siblings have made emotional pleas for their mother's safe return, emphasizing her fragile health and her urgent need for daily medication. The why of it. Why is this all happening? Is this a kidnapping? Is it the classic cliche kidnapping of someone in order to get money for their return? And it's the kidnapping of someone who is connected to an A-list celebrity who has a lot of money. Is that really what it's all about? Well, the FBI talked about investigating one of the first ransom notes that was sent.
We are aware of a ransom letter that was sent to the local media and then to national outlets. As with every lead, we are taking it seriously.
There have been, as far as we know, I think 3 ransom notes so far, 1 arrest. Are they all different? Or do you think there's different authors behind all of them? Or?
So the one that went to the media is the one we are currently investigating and working on. The imposter that I talked about, where an arrest was made early this morning, that there will be more information. We believe there's no evidence to connect this to Nancy's case. It was someone that was trying to profit from it, a total imposter.
Okay, so initially there are some that are sent to media outlets, to local news organizations and TMZ, right? And those are all, we believe, the same letter sent to 3 different outlets. Then there was a second letter that followed up after the messages went out. That was determined to be an imposter, resulted in an arrest. Now on Friday, another communication was received by one of the local stations, which then resulted, or at the same time, suddenly they went back to Nancy Guthrie's house. Now let's go back to that first note that TMZ had. They've been talking a little bit about the content of the note, what they can reveal, what they can release. And one of the keys is that the author of this note revealing things that perhaps only someone who was there at the abduction would know. TMZ founder Harvey Levin said this on Fox News' Hannity.
Tuesday, when we received what looked like a ransom letter, and so we called the sheriff's department in Pima, and they took the information, an Apple Watch and a damaged floodlight. What I found interesting, because we knew she wore an Apple Watch, there are pictures of her with Savannah with that watch, but they mentioned where the watch was, the placement of the watch in the house, and that's not something that was out there.
And that seems to be the key, right? There's a broken floodlight. Who would know? Maybe you would, you wouldn't, because these notes came out after this was a story. But inside the home, the location of the Apple Watch. Take a listen to this. This is Savannah and her brother, who after these notes were given to them, and I guess they spoke with investigators, spoke with the FBI, put out these two videos. Take a look.
We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
Okay, so to me, there's two parts of this, right? One part is, which is what Savannah, her family are very concerned about, is there proof of life? Is she alive? Can you prove to us that you have her and that she's alive? And then the other part is, are they actually the kidnappers? Is the author of this letter actually connected? And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. Is this enough to prove they're the kidnappers? You know, a detail about an Apple Watch. And perhaps, if it's connected, this second letter providing more details. But again, we have, none of that has been confirmed. Joining me, former homicide detective, host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough. Chris McDonough is with us, as well as criminologist, private investigator, and author David Hayes. All right, Chris, from your perspective, what do you need to verify that the people, the author of the note, is connected to or is the kidnapper, the abductor of Nancy Guthrie? And is this enough?
So, Vinnie, the first thing that jumps out is the FBI at the podium saying, we are aware of a note that has been received. The oddity in this, almost immediately, is two of those notes go to local news stations. Then, of course, the third goes to an entertainment company. So that gives us a little insight potentially into the personality that may be sending these notes. So the BAU, in my opinion, crafted the response back to this person right now, and it hit three things. It hit empathy, proof of life, and now family point of contact. And so, of course, now we saw another response today.
David Hayes, what are your thoughts here? Is this enough to prove that there's a connection here? Because it could be completely unconnected, could be connected. Nancy could be, unfortunately, not alive, or she could be captive.
Right, and I echo what Chris says. It's interesting about the choice of audience for the notes. So classically, if someone's going to send a ransom note, they're going to send it to a family because the family is going to be responsible for the payment. They're going to decide whether or not they're going to give into the payment or not, and they would usually get law enforcement help with that. So not sending it to the family directly it rings a little bit hollow. You went to two local news outlets and, of course, an entertainment outlet, like Chris said, TMZ. And, I don't believe that if Nancy was under, their watch, captured by them, getting Savannah and her family's contact information would be difficult. So the choice of the audience is something that I'm not, quite kosher with, much like Chris.
Let me follow up on that with you, David. What are your thoughts about, now, Savannah Guthrie, right, is a celebrity. She's in the news business. She's at the top of the food chain in the news business, right? Do you think it was purposefully sent to TMZ, knowing that TMZ is gonna report whatever they can on it in a way that won't compromise the safety of Nancy? But does the fact that the note and demand itself is public, do you think they believe that may have put more pressure on a public figure to actually just hand over the cash?
It's interesting, and I'm not sure if that's more impetus to hand cash over or the Bitcoin over, as the FBI has alluded to, is in the note. And I haven't seen the note, of course, but it's an interesting moment wherein it feels, because it came 4 days, I believe, after the abduction, 3 to 4 days after the abduction. So reasonably, did they know who they had? Was Nancy kidnapped because she was Savannah's mother, or is this a crime of convenience, or it's a crime of an elderly, well-to-do woman, alone and vulnerable, who's taken for this for whatever purposes, and then they find out later on that she happens to have a famous daughter, and that's where the plan is concocted to message the local news and then TMZ as an outlet. So there's so many unanswered questions. I would love to see the note and be able to the parse language and break down word usage and choices like that. We haven't seen that yet, though.
Let me ask you, Chris, is there any chance this is anything other than a kidnapping for money? Could it be a breaking and entering that went south, and they're just looking at Nancy as potentially evidence that they want to get rid of?
Yeah, absolutely, Vinny. In fact, the victim continuum tells us that again, right? This is a very low-risk victim. And so now that brings into play the thought process of what pre-association, between the victim and the offender, where did they cross paths at some point? So to answer your questions, absolutely, that's a possibility.
And Dave, we have about 20 seconds left here. Your thoughts on that?
I would agree with Chris. This could have been a break-in for money or her prescription medication, and just gone horribly wrong. And later on, find out that maybe there's some leverage, some bargaining power in her children.
Big thanks, David Hayes. Great to have you on the program. Chris is going to stick around. Coming up next, will there be another communication from the author of the ransom note?
We love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom. We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you.
The Court TV podcast will return.
We reference Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5 million build, Pineapple Blue, rings after 2,200 hours.
She's 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. She lives in constant pain.
Nobody's eliminated, but we just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy.
Everyone is looking for you, Mommy, everywhere.
Savannah Guthrie, in her message that she posted on Instagram, and reaching out to her mom, reaching out to all the people who have supported her and her family through this, and also reaching out to the author of the ransom note, the potential kidnappers in all of this. Now, in that note, the note itself has not been made public, but it was sent to the media. So the media has released some information in conjunction with law enforcement, obviously. They don't want to compromise anything, but we're learning a lot more about it, including some of the terms that were set by the alleged kidnappers. They're alleging that they are the kidnappers themselves. TMZ founder Harvey Levin said this on Fox News' Hannity.
There are two deadlines. Yes, there is one that changes the demand, and that's the one that that has already passed. And the one on Monday is far more consequential. They are also saying, Sean, and I find this, pretty interesting when you look at what happened today. They're saying that this will be their only communication, and they are done communicating, negotiating. Here's the deal, and that's it.
That was important. That was really important, right? So the original ransom letter says this will be the only communication. This is it. Here are the terms. There's other information in there, I'm sure, about exactly how to transfer the money into some Bitcoin wallet and the return of Nancy. But they say this is it. You're not going to hear any more. Take a look at this, a message from the sheriff on February 6th. After those comments from TMZ, the Sheriff's Department said the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department are aware of a new message regarding Nancy Guthrie. Investigators are actively inspecting the information providing the message for its authenticity. And as I said, after they got that note, or after the public was notified that they had received this note, something also happened back at Nancy's home, where the media is pushed away and a lot of investigators are at the house. How about that? Now, this new note sent to one local station. TMZ didn't get it. One of the local stations got it. So the process a little different on this email. And that brings us to the next question in our investigation. Will there be another communication from the author of the ransom note? Is this new note another communication? Will there be one after that? Is this going to become more of a traditional back and forth? Still with me, former detective Chris McDonough, and joining me, the host of Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. Tony Bruschi is with us. What does your gut tell you, Chris? Is this new communication same people or person?
Vinnie, one of my auxiliary responsibilities in the agency I retired from was I was on the hostage negotiations team for 11 years. And so this was a classic move by strategy. And you'll notice the other day you heard the sheriff say, no longer are we going to communicate to the press or anybody like that. Okay, i.e., if something big pops up, then we'll let you know. That's basically radio silence is what he was pitching, okay? And within a couple of days, boom, a new letter pitches up. And so I think strategically, this suspect or subjects are watching everything that's going on in this case as much as we're talking about it.
All right, Tony, what are your thoughts here? If in one note they're saying no other communication, and they send another communication, what does that tell you about what's taking place right now?
I think all options are on the table. I in no way want to discount anything Chris said. I think that is totally viable. But will there be more communications? Absolutely, and not just one. I think we're going to see a flood of them. But here's the problem. We've already seen multiple random demands come in, and we don't really have a lot of evidence that any of them are super legitimate. The details in these letters, the Apple Watch, the floodlight, that's all publicly available information. Anyone following the case could put that together. And maybe there's more behind the scenes. I'm not saying that couldn't be a possibility. When you have a high-profile family, a story getting national coverage like this, and the promise of possibly a massive payout, you're going to attract opportunists. That's just reality. So, yes, more notes will come, more demands, more deadlines, more noise, but more noise doesn't mean more signal. It actually makes things harder because now the family and law enforcement have to sort through every single one, trying to figure out if any of them are real while dealing with people who are essentially exploiting their pain for money. And here's a bigger question until we get to it, until we see verifiable proof of life, something that couldn't come from a news broadcast or a Google search. We don't even know what exactly is going on here. We don't even know if it's a kidnapping. We don't know if there's anyone to negotiate with. It could be a robbery gone wrong. There's just so many unknowns, and that's the reality of where we seem to be sitting.
Chris, what do you think of the two deadlines in that ransom note? One deadline seemed to be, okay, kind of like a early bird discount, right? You pay by a certain day, it's this much. You don't pay, now it's this much. And if you don't pay on Monday, Harvey Levin seems to be indicating that, yeah, that's going to be the end of the road. So the clock is ticking here. What do you make of these deadlines?
Well, I think that shows the lack of criminal sophistication in relationship to what they really know or what they really want. Which again, that points us back to, the very initial point of contact, i.e. the house. When we think about why you're going to take an 84-year-old woman out of a house and then come in with a payment plan in relationship to why you're going to give that person back, it really does cause us to go into this territory where you go, is this even legit? Okay. And so I think that's where the law enforcement, the authorities are running two parallel investigations here. They're taking this very seriously, but they also have the other side of that coin. And I think there's some serious criminal investigation going on.
And Tony, if in fact, well, we know a couple of things, right? A new note is received. We also know that the media and folks have been pushed away from the house because investigators are back over there. Do you think there's a connection? Do you think there's something in that letter that perhaps they're mentioning things in the letter that they're now looking for in the house?
I do, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the letter is legitimate either, but I think we're operating on hope here at this point in time. If you have the possibility that there could be something there in that letter that can match up, that they are going to go and try and cross-reference, that's what they're doing. That's why they're rushing back. I'm going to guess it has something to do with that letter, and we don't know if it's cross-referencing correctly and it is showing, okay, there is some legitimacy here, or these are just wild claims that are being made, hoping that it turns into something. We don't know the answer to that, but I truly believe everybody is trying to exercise every possible lead they possibly can to the furthest extent that they can, because the goal here is hopefully to get Nancy Guthrie back home safe.
All right, Chris McDonough, The Interview Room, thank you so much. Check it out on YouTube. Tony Bruschi's going to stick around. Still to come. Will Savannah Guthrie and her family pay the money before Monday's deadline?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie, a case with a missing 84-year-old woman, blood stains outside the house, and a mysterious ransom note. Here's the story. In the quiet Catalina foothills community outside of Tucson, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie has sharply jolted friends, family, and investigators alike. The 84-year-old mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie was reported missing on February 1st after she didn't arrive at a planned Sunday church service, and relatives found her home in unusual disarray. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nano says authorities believe Nancy was abducted from her home against her will, noting she has limited mobility, requires daily medication, and would not have walked away on her own. Blood matching her DNA was discovered on the front steps, and investigators are analyzing possible ransom notes that reference specific details about her and her home, even as the legitimacy of those notes remains unconfirmed. Despite extensive efforts by local law enforcement and the FBI, including reviewing surveillance footage, license plate readers, and digital data, no suspect has been identified, and Nancy's whereabouts remain unknown. Savannah and her family, supported by national attention and a growing reward, continue to plead for her safe return. So the original ransom notes, and it was, we believe, again, the same notes sent to 3 different news organizations, had some terms and demands on it, including a ransom amount, which we believe was to be paid in Bitcoin. TMZ founder Harvey Levin said this on Fox News' Hannity.
She knows exactly what the demand is. And so they are, through us telling the family, and obviously the Sheriff's Department gave the family the letter we received, exactly what they're demanding, and they're saying that Nancy is aware of it.
Okay, and what I'm taking away from that, right, is that in this letter, they're telling Savannah and the family, listen, your mom knows about the demand. She knows we're asking for money and we're going to release her if you just pay the money. Think about the psychological aspect of that on the kids, right? They're saying, well, we told your mother. We told your mother. They just got to pay the money and we'll let you go. Now, TMZ founder Harvey Levin said this on TMZ.com.
In the letter, it says they would return her back to Tucson. So they also give a time frame of how long it would take after they received the money to return her to Tucson. So there's a time frame. Now, if you look at the time frame, then you say, well, you can draw a circle around Tucson to see how long maximum it would take to get her back there.
Okay, so they've said, okay, you give us the money, you'll get your mom back, she'll be in Tucson, and it's going to take about this long for her to be returned. Some of the terms of the ransom in all of this. Take a listen now to the FBI who spoke about their role in all of this.
We have an expertise when it comes to kidnappings, and when families want advice, consultation, expertise, we will provide that. But the ultimate decisions on what they say and how they put that out rests with the family itself.
Okay, so here we are, right? The note is there. There's no proof of life. No proof of life. So you don't know if your mom is even alive, number one. And number two, are you convinced that the ransom letter is connected to the abduction of your mother? That brings us to the next question in our investigation. Will Savannah Guthrie and her family pay the money before Monday's deadline? And remember what Harvey Levin, how he described that deadline. There'll be some grave results if that deadline is not met, according to this letter. Joining me, former homicide detective Phil Waters, still with me, podcaster Tony Bruschi. Tony, I'll begin with you on this. Do you think the family, based upon what we know now, we don't know if there's more details that would make the ransom demand much more credible based upon further investigation, but based upon what we know, do you think Savannah Guthrie and her family are going to pay the money before the deadline on Monday?
I think it comes down to one thing, proof of life. What you have here is a lot of attempts at coercive control, it feels like. But I think proof of life is really what's going to answer that question. If there is proof of life, yeah, I think you got a real chance of that happening. If whoever sent these demands can prove Nancy Guthrie is alive, prove it in a way that couldn't be pulled from news coverage, then yes, I believe the family pays. If they have the resources and the motivation, they certainly do. I think that's what would happen. But we don't have that proof. The details in the letter, the family is reportedly taking seriously. The Apple Watch, the floodlight. From what we know publicly, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like I said earlier, a lot of that could be gleaned from public reporting. That doesn't make the letters definitively fake, but it doesn't make them credible either. I have spoken with multiple former FBI agents on my show today, Jennifer Coffendaffer, Robynn, and everyone agrees behind the scenes, the Bureau is probably almost certainly advising the family not to pay. That is standard. You don't hand untraceable money to someone who hasn't proven what they claim to have. And these ransom notes, real or not, represent something the family is clinging to, which is hope. There's nothing wrong with that. The possibility she's alive, I don't fault them for that for 1 second, but the Guthries are smart. They have some of the best minds advising them right now. And without verifiable proof of life, it makes no sense to gamble on a stranger who may have just made educated guesses from what's already available publicly. No proof of life, no payments, and I think that's the right call.
Phil Waters, the immense pressure that they're putting on this family, because you could look at it another way. It's just money. It's just, if it's the only chance, because they set a deadline, and the deadline puts pressure. What are your thoughts, Phil?
Well, I think the first thing I would comment on is that the struggle I'm having is this email that was released by TMZ, which I think was grossly irresponsible.
They didn't release the whole. They didn't release
connected?
it. They went to police. They've released some bits of information. They have not released the actual letter itself.
Well, yeah, I guess my point is it should have gone. It should have gone to authorities first, and if the authorities wanted to release anything, it should have been them, not media outlets.
Gotcha.
But having said that, it's out there, and so my question is this email related to what happened to Nancy Guthrie, or is this just an opportunist who has the ability to send? I'm surprised they haven't traced these IP addresses on these emails at this point, unless there's some sort of these people are very sophisticated and are able to jumble this around. I have done this myself and gotten right to the machine that sent the email. So, as Tony said, there's a lot of things we do not know, and that's the conundrum here for the family. The FBI and the sheriff's detectives are being, I would think, full disclosure, as I would be, with the family. Here's what we know. Here are your options. And they're going to find themselves at an emotional crossroads. As Tony's already alluded to, this is a gamble. This is a crapshoot. And you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because you don't know if the whole ransom is credible. And that was one thing we noted earlier on another platform, that the information that they're given in this thing is all out in the media. So, and this proof of life thing is critical and is crucial. And until that happens, I know the FBI is as they've done when I've been involved with those types of investigations, they're telling them don't pay it. And so there you go. That's the conundrum for the family. On an emotional level, you pay it.
Right.
I mean, they take a step back and consider it.
You got to look at the downside of this, right? From a human level, the downside, right? If you pay it,
sure, and
it's a fraudster, all right, you're out the money. But if you don't pay it and you never get your mother back, can you live with that, right? There's the psychological part of it that it's got to absolutely be tormenting them each moment as that deadline gets closer and closer. We only have a few seconds left here from each of you. So do you think in the end that they won't pay the money unless there's some new information beyond what we have? Tony, go first. We have like 10 seconds each.
I'm going to say proof of life, yes. Payment, if not, I'm going to say probably no.
Okay. And Phil, do you think that they will just on a lark say, listen, it's the only hope we have? Or do you think they're going to listen to the advice and not pay it unless they get more information?
I agree with Tony. I don't think they're going to make any decision on a lark. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them.
All right. Tony Bruschi, thanks so much. Phil is going to stick around. Coming up next, if the family pays, right? Could the kidnappers actually get away with it?
We will not rest. Your children will not rest.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
If you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you.
That family has been put through it. You can tell them they're not sleeping. Each moment has to be torture. Every time a cell phone rings or a text message comes in, they must jump. This is so difficult for them. I want to put this up on the screen. This is from TMZ, and this, again, relates back to the ransom that was sent to TMZ. The note, which was sent to us Tuesday morning, demands a specific substantial amount of Bitcoin. The amount is in the millions, and the note demands the cryptocurrency be sent to a specific Bitcoin address. And then they say that TMZ has verified that the Bitcoin address is real. Okay. They want to get paid. Cryptocurrency is what they're asking for. There's also information there about the return of Nancy to Tucson. Brings us to the final question in our investigation this hour. If the family pays, could the kidnappers get away with it? Let's say whatever the demand is, okay, we're going to pay it. Could they get away with this? Still with me, former detective Phil Waters, and joining me, cryptocurrency expert and CEO of Old Glory Bank, Mike Ring. Mike, let me start with you. I have a series of questions here for you. First of all, a Bitcoin address is real. If it's real, what does that mean, number one? And number two, why can't we trace a real address to a real person?
That's a great question, Vinny. So the address is where you would send the Bitcoin, but that address, while it's public and it's on the blockchain, and that's what's special about Bitcoin, but also the problem, whoever owns the wallet that has the private keys to control that address is what's anonymous, and you can't get those keys unless someone wants to give them up. And I would submit to you that if someone has the sophistication to pull off everything else related to this crime, they're not going to be so stupid to have their private keys out there or having a wallet that's not completely anonymous, which any reasonably sophisticated person can create in about 5 minutes. So this will be difficult. Now, how you get rid of the crypto and how you launder it is where you'll get caught.
Okay, so let's talk about that. The crypto is transferred. They get it into their wallet.
Public address.
Okay, public address.
Those will be the most.
They get their key, they get their wallet. Then how do they turn it into like actual money where we can do things with it?
Well, that's where you've got to launder it. It'd be like holding the Mona Lisa. You'd have the most famous painting in the world, but you couldn't get rid of it. This will be the most famous address on the planet. Every internet sleuth will be watching this address. And so how do they fence it? And I think the only way they launder this is through a state actor. Because, every address will be watching this. It will be dirty forever. And so you're not going to send it to Coinbase or Kraken or even Old Glory Bank. You're going to have to send it. I think it's going to be a state actor. And it's possible that this never gets laundered. This will be very difficult to launder.
Okay, and just one quick follow-up to that. When you say state actor, what do you mean? Give me an example.
Unfortunately, China and North Korea are very common state actors in laundering Bitcoin. Now, I want to make sure people aren't hating on Bitcoin. There's probably $2 trillion a year in laundered funds, and only about 3% of that is Bitcoin or crypto. So let's not go hard on crypto. They still haven't found the jewels from the Louvre yet. It's harder to get rid of diamonds and unmarked gold than it is crypto. And so actually, I'm surprised they are doing this because the whole world will be watching this address.
Okay, and by the way, there's a lot of laundering of actual cash that is happening as well. We know that for sure. Okay, all right, Phil Waters, do you think that the kidnappers could get away with this?
If they're real in terms of what they supposedly hold, which is Ms. Guthrie, and the family decides to pay, I think they can. I think they can get a hold of it and get away with it in the sense that this is a real education listening to Mike talk about the crypto stuff, because if they get it and they can't do anything with it, his example of the Mona Lisa is great. So that brings me to the question of what's the point?
Right. Is there anything else, Mike, that you can do with it if you have this? If you're the owner or have the key to this address, like does it have any other value long term?
It really doesn't, because for the rest of eternity, people will know where this crypto was sent to that first wallet and that address. And the minute it leaves, people will see it on the blockchain and they'll trace it and trace it and trace it. So a typical bad actor does not have the entire world monitoring the address and trying to figure out if it leaps 3 times, splits up, jumps chains. Here, the entire world is going to try to figure this out and be the hero. So, I'm kind of I've listened to your show. It's a great show tonight, Vinny. I'm of the mindset that the person asking for Bitcoin is not actually the person who holds Miss Guthrie. And I'm sorry to say that I have no knowledge to do it, but Bitcoin is not what you want. It is too easy to trace in today's world.
Let me ask you this. Is there a different cryptocurrency that would be easier for someone to get away with it? Or are they all basically the same?
Yeah, the different blockchains I would submit, and I don't want to say it on the air because I'm not promoting this, but Bitcoin is the most monitored, especially now. This would be the worst cryptocurrency to take. Now, it's the most reliable as far as price stability, I would submit to you, but the entire world is going to know this address, where if you did more of a less familiar chain, it's possible. So I don't... I'd be asking for diamonds or jewels or cash. You could spend a little cash every day. You can't spend a little Bitcoin every day.
This is so eye-opening. All right, Phil Waters. So what is this telling you? And what does this tell you about the ransom note people versus the kidnappers? And are they the same? Are they sophisticated? Or are they perhaps, if it's the same person, extremely foolish?
Well,
I gave you some great choices there, huh?
I would say, yeah, exactly. It's too many multiple choices on that question. I would say this. I'm of the school at this point that I follow evidence. And I'm with Mike in the sense that I'm not sure that one is connected to the other. And I am not yet convinced that Ms. Guthrie was abducted in the sense that, or kidnapped in the sense that we're talking about.
Could have just been taken away.
What we don't know is what...
Something happened. We're out of time, unfortunately. But I think I get where you're going.
I hate to say it, but if something happened in the house, all they did was move a body.
Move a body. All right. Phil Waters, thank you so much. Mike Ring, thank you for opening everyone's eyes tonight. We appreciate it. The Monday deadline is significant. It's a pivotal moment in the abduction of Nancy. This is such an awful position everyone has been put in. How this ends is so difficult to predict. But again, today, all we can hope is that whoever has Nancy has some sense of humanity and decency and will let her return home to her family. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.